What's going on, my broskiis? My name is Toadskii, back again, here to bring you guys yet another One Piece Treasure Cruise video. And in this video, we have 3 separate teams to take on the latest Pirate King Adventures level 100. Now, these videos showing off all of these teams, they may work up to level 150, but I'm not 100% sure. We'll have to wait and see. Once we get closer to that 150 threshold, we will be able to test these teams out even further. So don't quote these teams on being able to beat level 150, but they are currently able to beat level 100, as all of them are showing in this clip. I want to give a huge shout out to Vam Sok, who was the original creator of this team, a Korean One Piece Treasure Cruise player. He was the first guy that I saw create this team, and I wanted to show it off for you guys, show off exactly how it works. So the cool thing about taking on this content is, with a lot of PKAs actually, when you get to that 100 threshold, the gimmicks are really ridiculous. But one thing that is kind of nice is you are able to stall out that third stage basically forever, as long as you have enough HP to tank it, obviously. So you can just sit there, tank all the gimmicks, and then once that is done, you can move on to that next stage. So it kind of saves some space on your crew, as you're not dedicating specials for stage 3. Once we reach stage 3 with this team though, we're going to be able to have these full board of recovery slots due to the V1 Bonney's captain ability, where every time you attack with type advantage, she generates a recovery slot for that character. So because of that, when we launch the special of Luffy, he gives color affinity boost, but says that if we have 2 characters with a recovery slot, he removes 6 turns of Rainbow Shield instead of 5 turns. So that enables us to get around this stage very comfortably, and we keep 5 specials for the final stage. Now when we reach the final stage, we do have a couple of key supports that are activating. One activating on Chopper, which removes 2 turns of Bind and Attack Down with V1 Cat Viper Legend. And then with this team, we're going to be having the Chopper special, which gets around the Bind and the Despair for us, along with that support as we mentioned. This Int Sanji, Treasure Map Sanji from Film Red, I think he's from Film Red, is very, very good. He removes the damage immunity on the opponent. He also gives us a base attack boost for our Int characters, which is very strong. But there's not many characters that remove damage immunity, so he's nice to have. Now, the Yamato in this team is also very, very key, because before level 100, Lilith would only do 1 death hit. However, after level 100, Lilith does 2 death hits. She does a death hit when you kill her, and she does a death hit on that next turn. So it's actually like an 80,000 hit, and then a secondary 80,000 hit. So the damage reduction that you have actually needs to last for 2 turns in order to tank it, or you have an absorbent amount of HP, which allows you to tank both hits combined. Or you have like a lot of HP, tank one with damage reduction, and then tank one naturally. It's very annoying the way that it's kind of structured here. But of course, we do have big damage coming in from Lilith and Bonney, both giving substantial buffs for our crew. But the cool thing is we are able to use Bonney on the revive, which gives us the chain lock, which is really strong too. And Lilith, of course, as the captain, is going to have the ability with her special to do the end of turn damage, which enables us so that when we are able to take her on that second turn, to bypass that resilience debuff. Moving on to the secondary team of this video, it's going to be using Versus Kaido. I have seen quite a lot of people talk about Versus Kaido and his usability in this content, and he does seem to be a very solid option and has great synergy actually with V1 Bonney. As V1 Bonney says, as we talked about in the previous clip, every time you attack with type advantage, you get a recovery slot. But remember, with Kaido's captain ability, recovery slots are transformed into Wano slots. So essentially, every turn you're attacking with type advantage, you get Wano slots instead. And this enables us to charge Kaido's Versus ability from the first 2 stages. You can take your time and charge that Versus effect, because you do need that Versus effect in order to actually get through the content. Want to give a huge shout out to Binks Sake, OPTC on Twitter, who is the original creator of this team. As I said, I'll leave everything down below in the description so you can check out all of these individuals. Yeah, so the way that this team is actually working is we use Drake's special ability to remove the 2 barriers, or the 2 turns of barriers on stage 4. We stalled everything on stage 3, pretty much like the previous team. And then what we can do is through the Rainbow Shield, we have Jack special. Jack also gives us, you know, chain boundary stuff. We're activating Bonney too to give us an attack buff for this stage. Because the thing is Bonney isn't really needed for the final stage at all. So we can just use her on an earlier stage to give us a pretty sizable damage increase to ensure that Lilith goes down comfortably. The cool thing about Alba on this team too is that when we have that paralysis slot that is given to us on stage 4, when we tap with him to remove that paralysis slot, he's inflicted with paralysis, but his crewmate ability resists that completely. So the paralysis component of paralysis slots is null and void. It doesn't even matter. We do get a little bit unlucky though, because Alba generates a recovery slot which is transformed into Wano, which means that we're unable to secure Alba's super tandem ability on this turn. So you actually can get a little unlucky in that regard, because if he generates that Wano slot, you can't get super tandem, which does nerf your damage by a little bit. So you do have to keep that in mind. But with this stage, we have Kaido's special ability to actually charge our specials back so that we can use Jack special again. The versus effect giving big damage. The Blackbeard special, you guys might not have noticed what he was there for. He does remove the damage immunity on the enemy side of the field. And then Alba removes Despair. Jack removes the bind and the attack down, gives chain boundary. We have the 2 turns of the threshold damage reduction from Alba, which allows us to tank the 2 hits. We have just enough HP to tank the 2 hits, so it is a very tight window of HP, but we were able to tank it, and this team actually does do a very, very good amount of damage, and I think this has very high potential of lasting a long time in this PKE period. Moving on to the final team of the video, this is a really fun team as it gets through it relatively quickly and doesn't require any stall even on that stage 3. There are a couple of components about this team though. The Nami that you see is level limit break 5, and the Chopper on this team does have the expansion so that he gets an additional cooldown. Those are required for this team to actually work. But if you're able to actually provide that, this team is incredible for getting through the content really quickly. I feel like this team is not going to last as long as the other 2 teams. If you do have Final Tap Lore at Final Tap level 5, I think that's going to help you out immensely in this content, but we'll have to wait and see with more investments whether or not you're able to get through that or not. So Nami is key for that stage 3 fight because she has really low cooldown with expansion and her level limit break. She gets rid of the block slots, she gets rid of paralysis, and she gets rid of the burn. Now she doesn't get rid of all of the paralysis. We did need a support in order to remove that. But still, Nami almost single-handedly deals with everything on stage 3, which is kind of crazy. And she's cerebral, working well with Lilith and also Lore captains. We once again reach this stage here. Now, normally you need those recovery slots to pierce the barrier, but we have the potential ability of Lilith and Lore both with barrier pierce so that we can use their normal attacks to get through this instead. So we do use the Luffy special for color affinity, removes that rainbow shield of course, and then that support of Lore also removes rainbow shield. Lore with his super type, locking those slots so we can keep these slots throughout the entire duration of this run. Sanji to give us a bit of chain boundary, and with chain boundary and the color affinity, this is actually enough damage to get through. As long as we final tap with Lore and then Lilith, that will give us enough damage to break through with that barrier pierce and just provide enough damage to get through. And then we can look at the final stage, and this is where, having that cooldown on Chopper is important because you see he's only just going to be ready. I actually did try this team out. I didn't have expansion on Chopper, so I did have to invest a little bit just to get the cooldown reduction, which is important. And then when we reach this last stage, Chopper will be able to remove Bind, Despair, give color affinity, and of course if you hit 3 perfects with Chopper, you actually will get color affinity on the turn afterwards as well, which is really good. Multiple turns of color affinity is always a positive thing. The Reiju support, removing a bit of that paralysis there, which is a bit of the bind there, which is kind of key. And then, of course, the big damage, of course, coming through Lilith and Trafalgar Law. And then, of course, Sanji removing the damage immunity and giving us the chain boundary. So that is going to wrap it up for me today. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video, and if you guys did enjoy it, make sure to go ahead and leave a like. And if you want to stay up to date with all the content that I post, including more One Piece Treasure Cruise content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. On that, guys, I will see you guys within the next video.